We can no longer tolerate these chronic trade abuses, and we will not tolerate them. From this day forward, we will compete on a fair and equal basis. We are not going to let the United States be taken advantage of anymore.
It was quite a speech that you likely missed happening overnight. President Trump giving a very fiery speech to world leaders in Vietnam early this morning. Mr. Trump vowing to take a stronger stance on the world stage than what was offered for the past 8 years under Barack Obama. Here now to react, former U.S. Army intelligence officer Andrew Peek. Thanks so much for coming on this morning. This, in my opinion, talk like this is how he won the election. This is how he swung all those blue states, those Rust Belt states, over to his side, because he's saying, listen, we're not getting a fair deal on this. I mean, the reason that these countries like Vietnam are so successful right now is that are practicing unfair trade practices with the United States. Would you agree with that assessment?
I would. You know, I think the talk on trade is long overdue. I think if you think about Trump's policies holistically during the campaign in the first year, it's been about tightening the labor market for non-college educated Americans.
Sure.
And trade enforcement is part of that. I think there's a problem in that since he's prioritized North Korea over the past 9 months of his administration,
right,
that the Chinese are going to be saying, what's your priority here? Is it better trade or is it action on North Korea? Because we can trade off one or the other, but
and he wants to win both.
And he wants to win both. And maybe he will.
But I mean, that would be pretty. It'd be very easy to see him not winning either with a country like China that probably doesn't like to give on either side.
Yeah, concessions are few and far between.
Right. It's a major powerhouse. It's a big, powerful country. But it really is true. I mean, you look at what Amy just said in her piece. I mean, you know, Vietnam is a burgeoning, successful country. They're manufacturing a lot of the stuff, and we're buying a lot of things from Vietnam. I see made in Vietnam on our products all the time. They're not reciprocating that. They're not buying U.S. products.
Right.
That's where the unfair trade comes in. That's what he's talking about. That's what upsets him.
Right. And it's good in that sense that these comments were made at a multilateral summit rather than a bilateral U.S.-Vietnam summit, because with Vietnam, the trade issue is actually not at the top of our agenda. We want to have closer relations with Vietnam to balance China, right?
Sure.
So we would rather have that, actually, than total enforcement on trade. So with China, probably a little bit, it's the other way around.
Yeah. But let's talk a little bit about, you know, he did make some mention of, you know, getting rid of ISIS. That was important. He did want to use that venue for that as well. Let's talk about North Korea, though, and let's talk about Vladimir Putin, who's at this conference as well. There is speculation that they will meet. What's that conversation going to be like?
Well, generally, we have not wanted to have summit meetings with foreign heads of state, particularly if they're rivals, unless there are concrete concessions on the table. We don't do this for atmospherics, particularly in a meeting that's going to be as loaded as a Trump-Putin meeting, right, or a Tillerson-Putin meeting, right, or whatever. I think the top order of business for Putin is going to be trying to get us to commit to getting our forces out of Syria. You know, he and his allies, the Iranians, the Syrians, want to win the Syrian civil war. And they think that the U.S. is looking for an excuse not to back up the Kurds, our allies. So that's kind of what the Russians want out of this meeting.
And, you know, is he still dabbling in Ukraine? Is there any, I mean, I'm just trying to see what kind of bargaining chips the president has here. If he wants help with North Korea, I'm sure he's much less concerned about the situation in Ukraine. Could he use that in some
Absolutely.
way?
You know, and it would not be dissimilar, actually, from what the Obama administration did in the first year of its office when it traded missile systems in Poland and the Czech Republic for hopefully concessions on Iran, right? It's all about prioritization again.
You got to pick your battles, and some are just, you know, more necessary to fight right now than others, I guess. All right.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Andrew, for coming on this morning.
Thanks, Rob.
We appreciate it. All right.